The moment my boss refused to give me 4 days off for my father's funeral, something inside me snapped. I had given this company 5 years of my life, sacrificing birthdays, anniversaries, and even my own health at times, but when I needed just a handful of days to mourn and say goodbye to the man who raised me, I was treated like a disposable machine. His words, cold and dismissive, echoed in my head. "We can't afford for you to be gone right now. Handle your personal life on your own time." I walked out of his office that day numb with anger and grief. My father had been my hero, a man who taught me the value of hard work, loyalty, and respect. To be denied the chance to lay him to rest felt like a betrayal not just to me, but to everything my father ever stood for. I knew in that moment that I could not let it go. My boss had stripped me of my right to mourn, and for that, he would face consequences he couldn't imagine. That night, I sat at my small apartment with tears streaming down my face. Photos of my dad stared back at me from the walls, reminding me of all the sacrifices he had made so I could have a better life. The grief was overwhelming, but so was the fury. My boss had taken from me something priceless, and if he thought I was just going to show up to work the next morning as if nothing had happened, he was very wrong. I began going through files I had saved over the years, evidence of shady deals, tax evasion, and the unethical practices my boss had built his empire on. He had been reckless, believing that no employee would ever dare to cross him. But he had underestimated me. While he denied me 4 days to bury my father, he had unknowingly given me the reason to bury his career. The company's network was something I knew like the back of my hand. I had access to sensitive documents, financial records, and communication logs. As I pieced together the puzzle, I realized just how dirty his hands were. Fraudulent contracts, offshore accounts, bribery, it was all there, waiting to be exposed. My boss thought he was untouchable, but the proof in my possession said otherwise. By midnight, I had organized everything into neat folders, each one damning enough to bring him down. I crafted anonymous emails addressed to government investigators, the media, and even a few of our largest clients. Every attachment I sent was another nail in the coffin of his empire. My hands trembled as I hit send, but not with fear, with a strange, burning satisfaction. I didn't stop there. I logged into the company's systems one final time, planting just enough evidence of his corruption in plain sight so that when auditors came knocking, they wouldn't have to dig too deep. By the time I was done, his empire was a ticking time bomb set to explode. I leaned back in my chair, exhausted, but for the first time that day, I smiled. The next morning, I didn't go to work. Instead, I went to the funeral home to sit beside my father's casket, whispering apologies and promises. "I couldn't be there with you the way I wanted, Dad," I said softly, "but I made sure the man who disrespected your memory will never sleep peacefully again." It wasn't the farewell I had envisioned, but it was the justice I knew my father would have approved of. Meanwhile, the office was in chaos. The emails had begun circulating. Clients were demanding answers, and regulators were already making calls. My boss stormed into the office, unaware that his entire world was crumbling around him. By noon, investigators were waiting for him in the lobby. He was escorted out of the building in front of everyone, his face pale, his arrogance replaced by fear. I received text messages from co-workers later that day, shocked at what had happened. Some thought it was karma. Others wondered how the truth had surfaced so suddenly. None of them knew it was me, and I intended to keep it that way. My revenge was never about recognition. It was about balance, about taking back what was stolen from me. Within a week, the company was under full investigation. My boss's name was splashed across headlines, tied to corruption, fraud, and betrayal. His reputation was ruined, and the empire he had built on greed and cruelty was collapsing like a house of cards. The same man who told me to handle my personal life on my own time was now begging for mercy in court. I found another job soon after, one where the management valued people as human beings, not as disposable tools. My co-workers there respected me, and my boss treated me with dignity. But even as I adjusted to the new chapter of my life, I carried the memory of that week with me, not with bitterness, but with pride. I had taken back my dignity, my father's honor, and my peace. Sometimes at night, I still dream of my father. I see him smiling, his hand on my shoulder, as if telling me he's proud of the strength I showed. I don't know if he would have chosen revenge the way I did, but I do know he always taught me never to let anyone trample over my worth. The man who denied me 4 days to grieve lost everything in the span of 4 days himself. That was the cruel poetry of fate, and I was its instrument. My grief had been turned into power, and in that power I finally found the closure I needed. And so, though I couldn't stand over my father's grave with peace in my heart on that first day, I later returned with a quiet smile. "I took it all back, Dad," I whispered. "For you. For me. For us."